Sensor Swarm, multi-sensor array for farm data calibration for wrkFarm. The core purpose of Sensor Swarm is to allow farmers to have more real-time data for their soil quality in their fields. Farmers can, of course, take soil samples and send them off to existing laboratories and get highly accurate data, but that can take over 2 weeks for them to get the data back. And in that time, crops can be damaged and yields can be reduced. Instead, with Sensor Swarm, combined with satellite data, we can get them more accurate, more real-time data that will allow them to optimize fertilizer use and increase crop yields.
For our wrkFarm project, we went through 3 different iterations during the design process. So the first part was design, where we selected different components, such as a GPS to send time and coordinate data, a soil sensor to send different data about the soil to determine crop health, and our LoRa to correctly transmit information from the different nodes out on a farm. So our first iteration, we used a breadboard and put these components on to test and validate that these components were functioning. Next, for our prototype, we used a perf board, and we also created an enclosure using SolidWorks and 3D printing to prevent our perf board from being affected from the weather seen on a farm. And then our final assembly, we just stepped it up and we used a printed circuit board with our different components and 3D printed enclosure to kind of reduce any farm effects. And this is our design process for the wrkFarm project.
Once the chassis was built, we put the whole thing together into one system, as shown on the right. The soil sensor is stabbed into the ground, or ideally buried about a foot underground for more accurate readings. The node components in the case are strapped to the pole, and the solar panel is mounted to the top with a custom bracket. The overall data flow is shown in the flowchart in the center. The base station will send a data request to each node one by one over LoRa. The node will receive that request, poll the sensor and read its data, and then compile that data into a JSON file before sending it back to the base station over the same LoRa channel. The long-term goal for this project is to combine our in-field data with already existing satellite data that wrkFarm works with to provide farmers with a much more accurate, near real-time soil data to better improve health and yield. Thank you for listening.